Welcome, everyone. Good morning, wherever you're at. We are so excited today. I'm Ginger Healy with the Attachment and Trauma Network, here today to talk about a really powerful and important event coming up in October that we just want all of you to mark your calendars for, called Compliance to Compassion. The Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint and the Attachment and Trauma Network are just so proud to collaborate together to bring you this special event that's all about supporting students, supporting teachers, and supporting staff in these challenging times. So this full day live virtual event on October 14th, 2022 will focus on the hope and the solutions that we can have in classroom and in schools. So we have an absolutely amazing lineup of experts who specialize in education and in creating trauma-informed schools and in tools that are practical and help in the classroom. So today, I just can't wait for you to meet our special guests. I'm going to turn the time over right now to Guy Stevens with the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint to introduce our special guests and expert speakers that are coming up. So welcome, everybody.
Ginger, thanks so much. And thank you for that great introduction. I am going to, first of all, welcome everybody and thank you for joining us. I'm really excited about this event that we have planned in October. I think it's going to be a great event at a really important time. As we think about the difficulty we've had over the last couple of years, the level of stress that has been there kind of through the global pandemic and many other things that seem to have caused additional stress in our world. They've been difficult and challenging times, and this event is really targeted at that. How can we help people where they are? How can we help teachers? How can we help educators? How can we help children through these challenging times? So to that end, we have this fantastic lineup that you mentioned, and it's really a privilege and an honor for me to get to introduce Dr. Stuart Shanker and Susan Hopkins. I've had the privilege of getting to meet both of you some time ago. I mean, it's probably been well over a year ago. Began as a huge fan of your work and what you were doing with Self-Reg and the Merit Center, and eventually got to interview you for a podcast that we were doing. Which again, it's when you get to meet the people, and Susan, we were talking about this earlier, you get to meet the people that you really respect and think highly of. It's such an honor. And as I was looking to do your introduction, I looked at your long list of credentials and the introductions that I've used before. And I thought, well, I'm going to shift just to a very heartfelt introduction and say, first and foremost, that you are both two amazing people that are doing work to change the world. Of course, many people may be familiar with Dr. Shanker's, work, the book Self-Reg, Reframed. I also have here, and I'm very excited through the collaboration that we've had together with the Merit Center. Yeah, Ginger has hers as well. Great. Also to have this book co-authored by both Susan and Stuart, Self-Reg for Schools, and I think really relevant to the event that we're doing and the message that we have. So, through Stuart's work, I've learned so much, about the brain and brain science and stress, and your thoughts and words are always echoing through my mind about being a stress detective, about there being no bad kids. And again, I think back to your story about where you had the exception where somebody said, "No, I know one." The work that you do, and Susan, the two of you together, and very deliberately when I reached out to you, I'm like, we want both of you there because you have this amazing chemistry, and I think the work that you do in talking about how stress affects all of us, not just children, but the teachers and educators and everyone, is so meaningful in this time. So I just want to thank you both for joining us today. And even more so, thank you for making time to join us for this event coming up in October. And we wanted to talk a little bit about that. But thank you both for being here today. And we're so looking forward to October. So I wanted to shift, and we've got a great session planned. You have a session called Self-Reg Schools, Hopes, Hurdles, and Hows. And I wondered if Dr. Shanker and Susan, if you might tell us a little bit about what you have planned for that session.
Thank you, Guy. I'm going to be talking about an extraordinary scientific revolution that's occurred over the last 20 years. Guy is absolutely right. We are seeing an explosion of stress-related problems in students. These can be physical or these can be mental health problems. Generally, they're both. And of course, we want to understand why, but only in order that we can do exactly what Guy just said, so that we can begin to look at what are we going to do about this? How can educators, how can parents help kids through these very difficult times? And what we've learned is there's really three factors involved in why we're seeing so many problems. Problems reaching the level of an epidemic. The first problem is exactly what Guy just said. We know that stress levels are exceptionally high, and we'll spend a little bit of time explaining what exactly a scientist understands by stress. What are stresses? What are the hidden stresses that children and teens are struggling with? So yes, we have to become what Guy said. We have to become stress detectives. The second big factor is what we call maladaptive modes of self-regulation. And I'll explain what that means. But essentially, kids are searching for ways to get a bit of dopamine. Dopamine gives you a bit of a buzz, but it doesn't turn off the stress response. And that's critical. So the stress stays there, or in fact builds. And then the third big factor is what does turn off the stress response? What are the neurochemicals that have this effect deep inside the brain? And how can we trigger those neurochemicals? What are the sorts of things that stimulate systems deep inside the subcortex to get back to what we call homeostasis, to get back to balance? So once we've understood all that, we'll talk about self-reg. And there are 5 steps involved in self-reg. All 5 of them are critical for dealing with what is, in fact, a crisis. The first step is called reframing. And here what we're going to explain for you is what's the difference between misbehavior and stress behavior. Misbehavior are things the kid does on purpose, intentional. Stress behaviors are behaviors that are caused by excessive stress. So we want to know what are the signs of stress behavior so that we don't add to the children's stress load. And that, of course, is the essence of all the work that we've been doing with Guy. Why it is essential that our society moves past any form of physical, emotional, or verbal constraint. Why this is so harmful to a kid. The second step is what Guy said. We're going to figure out what the stresses are. The third step is we're going to figure out how can we reduce those stresses? How can we turn on that mechanism, those neurochemicals that stop stress in its tracks before it can get started? The fourth step is kind of pivotal. The fourth step is how do we get kids to calm? We are seeing now a generation that do not know what calmness feels like. And we're not talking about being quiet. We're not talking about being submissive. We're talking about a state where both the mind or the brain and the body are soothed, where the arousal is reduced. And that's essential because to get to the fifth step, which is called restoration, first the kid has to be calm. When restoration occurs, what happens is it replenishes all of the kid's energy. It replenishes the child's or the teen's social relationships, the kid's mood, the kid's outlook, the kid's positive approach to their life. So it doesn't take much. Much to see that we are in what is essentially a pervasive lack of restoration. Kids are not restoring properly. And that leads me to Susan. We've worked very hard on what are the sorts of things we can do to get kids to restore? What are the ways that we go through self-reg to really change, transform a child's trajectory, and give a little meat to what Guy said? And I don't want it to be overlooked, that there really isn't such a thing as a bad kid. There never is. So if it looks like there's some problems here, we want to figure out why, and Susan, what we can do about it.
And it's, I have to tell you, October 14th is a special day. First of all, I love the title of this event. You'll know why he's laughing in just a second, because we really are. It's one thing to know the science, and it's ever evolving. And those of you that follow Stuart Shanker or our organization, there is so much complexity, so much more that's always evolving and building on self-reg. So this idea of moving from compliance, which is a problem. Compliance is not our goal. And if that makes you go, oh, it did me too at first, but no, we want kids to want to comply. That's different. That's different. Compliance, this compliance mindset is part of our problem. But how do we move to this compassion? Is, how do we actually bring this to life, which is part of what my work has been working with Stuart for almost a decade in a whole bunch of different ways. But the 14th is special because it is Stuart Shanker's birthday. So we will be honoring him on that day as well. So yeah.
The day that Columbus discovered America.
Well, there you go.
We will have cake for you. Let's not worry about all that other stuff.
There you go. We'll blow out some candles. I'm not sure he'll let us know how many. So the one thing about thinking of all of this self-reg and about the science and understanding stress is it's not just about managing stress. We can get, suddenly think we need to go to a program, or we are, doing these 3 things and that's going to solve all of the problems. And, people are the solution. We have this saying, you are the strategy. And there are ways to bring self-reg into the whole school, into the whole classroom. Stuart and I have done it in early years in schools and working in high schools, working even post-secondary. And it's using self-reg as a framework, and it is game-changing. We talk about 4 journeys. This is just from our work for over 7 years now. Stuart's been doing it for 4 decades. But 7 years with the Merit Center of working with different schools and educators. And it's important to remember, this isn't just for behavior specialist interventions. It's not just for that kid. This is at a universal level. It's me as a teacher, a couple of decades in education. It's what I do in my classroom. It's all of us. And so beginning to think about how we can do that in a school level. So we talk about seeds, people that learn a little, come out, and read a book, do a book club, try out some things, work at using those steps that Stuart walked you through. We talk about Sunrise. It's a much bigger, you're trying to do a small initiative. We have schools that are, trying to pilot in a couple of classrooms where teachers are really want to try something different. They're looking at the environment, at programming, at their flow of the day for the schedule, and recognizing all the points that we add stress instead of reducing it. It ties into play-based learning in the early years. It ties into inquiry learning. It can tie into your, what's going on when meltdowns around math happen, and how to really use the science to look at that differently, because it's not just about trying harder. And then we have Quilt. That's bigger, where you're trying to piece it together with your mental health work, with your safe schools work. And then we have Haven, which is our title here. And it's our dream, right? And it's about coming to everything we do with this mindset of looking at the whole child. I had an elder years ago give me the language when she heard me talk about self-reg of soft eyes, this idea of looking at children, and looking at behaviors differently. And it's the 4-year-old meltdown, but it's also the teenager that's telling you where to go and storming out of the school. How do I see that differently? And here's the thing. Until we can see that differently and realize, if I was to look at the smartwatch of the future, and to be able to see into what was going on to that 4-year-old meltdown, or that teenager storming away, or that parent who's yelling at you, or the colleague who's having a meltdown, or you at the end of the day, when you go home, you've been so patient for kids all day long, and then you're barking at your own kids, right? If I could look in and see the chemicals of stress, like I like to think about bringing this to life. Stuart's a science guy, but I like to think about what it means. And I could see there's a stress whirlwind going on inside there. How would I respond differently? And we need to know that the answers are not quick fixes. But until we can actually see differently, Stuart has a saying, see a child differently, see a different child. Our response changes our brain body states. It's not just brains. It's not just neuroscience. It's physiology. It's a whole bunch of science. It changes what we see and what we're projecting as well. And that's picked up on by the child. So we're not just thinking individuals. We can be thinking whole class. And I'm not talking 30 IEPs. I'm talking, whoa, how do I change the weather of this classroom? How do I change things in this particular moment? So it's a real game changer. And the real big key, I think, is realizing that this isn't just about kids. When I found self-reg, I had years in inclusion, and I believed I believed there was no such thing as a bad kid. Even if I didn't have the language and the science, I knew there was always more. I was an at-risk kid, and Stuart helped me see differently. And the science, I'm just like, that's what it is. It's not self-control. But then what happened was I realized, this is about me. It explains me as a teenager. And I'm a different parent as a result, And so it's also about recognizing ourselves, looking in the mirror, realizing when we have practices, we got sticker charts on walls, or we're doing timeouts, or, we're thinking suspensions or seclusion rooms, and seclusion and restraint. Forced choices like that are the solution. And how do we get there? And how do we move past? We need to realize, okay, we did the best we could. It is time. The science is inviting us to move forward, and there is hope, and there's this path forward. So we're going to try to give you a snapshot of that in our short time with you, but we'll have lots of free resources and ways you can learn more. So super excited.
Yeah, Susan, this is great. And what I love about the work that both you and Stuart are doing related to self-reg is, again, this is not just about the kids. It's about us. It's about teachers. It's about all humans. I need to thank you both because, through my own stress, I'm learning things through the following of your work and doing, and you mentioned that, having a little bit of limited time in our session to talk about all this. The great thing is through the Merit Center, you have this amazing lineup of training. I've been fortunate enough to take some of that training. In fact, I have a class now that I'm taking, really fantastic. So that's part of the hope out of this, is that people will be inspired by what you're doing, and they're going to be able to go and get more. So with that, I know we have a short amount of time here today, but really excited about having you come. I'm going to hand it off to Ginger to kind of wrap us up.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're like me, you have so many questions and you want to keep talking, and I just want more, and I don't want this to end, but you don't need to be sad about that, because we are going to have all day October 14th for our live event to really get deeper into this and to ask questions and to follow through and to leave inspired and with the hope and the strategies that we need to make this happen. So good news, the tickets and the registration is open. The link is in the comments, and Julie is also posting the link here. So don't hesitate to spread the word about this event and to register and share this information, because it really truly is life-changing for the kids, for the teachers, for the staff, for us, all of us. We all need this. So I can't thank you all enough for your time today, Dr. Shanker and Susan. You are world changers, and we're just lucky to be in your presence. And I just can't wait to hear more. So
Ginger, if I can add, to all those great things you said, now that I know, there might be cake. Let's just say, if you were on the fence about signing up for this, know that there might be cake. We might sing to Stuart, so.
Yeah, and we have to sing in Canadian, so we got to spruce up our happy birthday Canadian skills. So we'll get right on that. Thanks everyone, and we will see you all soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.